Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Hockey at the Hall. This is your host, Anthony DiPaolo.
This is Sebastian Berry.
Mike Bellotti.
And I'm Sean Clancy.
Guys, we had a great week of hockey, and we have a lot of big stories to cover later on the show. But the big story right now, this past Tuesday, it was the Battle of the Hudson River. The Rangers and Devils squared off again. Guys, it was a great game.
Yeah, it was honestly, aside from the officiating, which we'll get into shortly, it was a very well-played game for both sides.
But anytime these two teams get together, it's always an exciting matchup, and this game proved that.
It looked like the playoff game.
Yeah.
I thought it was one of the most exciting games that I've seen so far this season. It was a combination of creative offensive play and some bad defensive lapses by both teams at times, and it resulted in wide-open hockey. Very exciting game.
And there was a lot of great goaltending, a lot of incredible saves being made for both sides.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, it was a tight game. It was a one-goal game. Rangers came out on top 3-2. It's with Rangers Devils, it's always going to be a tight game.
Like I was talking about with that play, I was talking about this earlier, the one where, was it Elias coming into the zone? And it looked like he didn't really have any options. Drops the puck between his legs to Clarkson, who has all kinds of space. And I'm thinking, oh, what a play. This is definitely a goal. Shoots it. Lundqvist kicks out the left pad, like old-style kick pad save. And, I think that 5-second play kind of represents
I think he got it with his glove. And
how the whole game goes.
I think had Clarkson shot it a little bit higher, then it might have gone in. Not to take anything away from Lundqvist. It was still a ridiculous save.
I thought that save was
not
just
to
as
mention
good
the
as
flurry of
Hedberg
3
glove
saves he made against, I believe one of the shots was against Ponikarovsky. I think it was also Kovalchuk. And then 1 minute later, Nash comes in and scores.
Yeah, but I mean that was just a lapse on the Devils' part, that they turned it over in the neutral zone and then a bad line change gave rise to that.
Yep, 2-on-1 Nash coming into the zone, and Hedberg took a bit of a gamble. Didn't close up the 5-hole there. Didn't think Nash was gonna go to the 5-hole, and
because usually Hedberg's a butterfly goalie,
right? But he had his right pad up, and thought Nash was gonna go to the right side of the net, and Nash really quick right between the legs.
Because you're right, Sean. Nash does look like a guy that would normally go, top shelf, and if Hedberg went butterfly, he would have easily picked the top left corner. But Nash was smart enough to realize that if you watch it, Hedberg almost made the first move, and Nash just found the 5-hole and was just able to put it in easily.
Yeah, and Hedberg was trying to come up with what was going to happen, but it was him. It was Nash and Gaborik coming down in a 2-on-1. Like there's very little you can do in that case.
And I kind of noticed something though about the Devils in the third period. I'll see. I wonder if you guys noticed this too. In the third period, the Devils took a lot of their shots from the point. And I know Sean's going to get on this about the first goal, but if you're going to shoot it from the point, you're going to have to do either two things when it's on Henrik Lundqvist. One, it's either going to have to be like a Mike Green slap shot, like an absolute snipe, top shelf, stick side, or you have to get a quadruple deflection. And as Sean noticed, I believe that was what Sean, Ilya Kovalchuk's goal? That was deflected.
Yeah, there was the Kovalchuk shot that went off either one or two players. Then it went off the knob of Hank's stick, off the post, and didn't go in. That was a heartbreaker.
But that was incredible.
That brings it up to about 5 or 6 posts that Kovalchuk has hit in the last.
I honestly had no idea how that didn't go in at first. And I saw it just caught the knob of the stick. That was incredible.
But I mean, the thing is though, if you're going to take all the shots from the point on Henrik Lundqvist, you're going to have to get deflections or you're going to have to get rebounds. The Devils did neither. And I guess you can say the credit goes to the Rangers defense for only limiting the shots from the point like that.
Yeah, a lot of the offensive creativity that I mentioned a couple minutes ago was kind of stifled a little bit in the third period. The Rangers cleaned up defensively, were a little bit more together.
I did not count one shot from below the top of the circle for the Devils in the third period.
The Rangers, in between the second and third period, the assistant coach, Mike Sullivan, he told them to buckle down defensively and to change the way they were playing defense.
And do everything in fives. So that's what John Giannone was saying.
So if you watched on every rush, like every time, with the Devils coming through the neutral zone, the Rangers had they had one forward up and they had their other 4 players back to clog the neutral zone to prevent the Devils from getting through.
All right, and guys, you also said that the officiating was horrible. I'm sure you guys have a lot to say about this, so whoever is the most pissed off about the officiating, go ahead and just start. And I guess just rant about...
Wonder who that be.
Who, me? You're okay. Well, yeah.
You're a
Well, I didn't think it was
Well,
all that.
I mean-
you said you
well, I mean,
were pretty upset about it,
yeah.
Michael. I didn't think it
Of
was
course
all
it would
that
be
bad.
Sean.
The one standout, though, of course, has got to be the one where
With
Girardi. It was Girardi.
Dan Girardi was trying to keep Zajac away from the front.
Girardi
of
and
the net
Zajac.
pushed him,
Okay,
you know,
Zajac gets a
pulled him around the side
2-minute
of the net.
penalty for elbowing. What'd they call it? I don't
No,
know.
it was
Goaltender
roughly-
interference.
Goalie
goalie
interference.
interference.
Wasn't the whistle? Didn't the whistle already blow or something? Or no?
Uh,
Was
yeah,
it
no, I
still-
think
I
the
mean, look-
whistle already blew because
Well, how can you call a goalie interference after the whistle blows? Anyway, Zajac never touched Hank. It was Girardi.
Girardi.
Elbow right to Hank's face. Of course, Lundqvist goes flopping down on the ice trying to draw a penalty. Fair enough. And he did draw a penalty, even though Zajac never touched a guy. So Zajac got a penalty for Girardi elbowing Hank.
Yeah, no.
Good
that
thing
was,
the Rangers power play blows chunks because they didn't score. So
Yeah, no. I actually agree with that. Like, I was honestly one of the more annoyed people with this game, even though the Rangers won. The officiating was awful. And if the Rangers power play wasn't so abysmal and they had scored on that, there would be all kinds of controversy going around right now that the Rangers, the refs are favoring teams and calling bad calls like that and changing the game.
See, I think that's a silly. I don't like playing the game of ifs. And you can never point as a fan to one playing the game and say that's the reason the opposing team won the game. You can't place all
I'm not
blame
saying that's why the Rangers
I know,
won,
I'm
but it
just
could have
saying-
completely changed the course of the game.
I don't think
That's why, it's a good thing the Rangers power play, like he says, blow chunks.
I don't think it's a good thing the Rangers power play is not good. It's a
what do you
very
got
bad
next
thing.
for us, Anthony?
well, I mean, there were some other calls too, some missed calls.
The missed high stick on
That's fair. Step on.
Elias, the weird tripping call called on Strawman, even though it was just a body check. Apparently, it becomes tripping.
So,
But
do you think the officiating is really something that needs to be addressed? Because it seems like a lot of complaints from the fans this year, especially with all these missed calls from all around the league.
This is a sport, and obviously the fans are going to be upset with the referees no matter what sport it is, no matter how well the referees are doing. That's in every sport, in every contest. No one's walking away happy with the officials. You can't blame them for everything.
All right, good point, Sebastian. And now we are going to go to the other New York team, the Islanders.
wait. There's another New York team.
Yes, Mike. There's
They
another
won 4
team.
Stanley Cups in a row while you guys are struggling to make the playoffs every single year. Yes, there's another New York
Did
team.
you guys even
I'm
exist
well aware.
back
They
then?
won 81 to 84.
No, we didn't. We were
Oh,
an
okay.
expansion team.
No.
Okay, so fan arguments aside, the Islanders gave up the first goal against Ottawa. Then the Islanders scored 3 straight, and then Ottawa topped that and got 4 unanswered goals, winning 5-3. Guys, the Islanders just cannot seem to get their act together.
Well, they're not going to make the playoffs if they can't get their act together. When you have a 3-1 lead, that's the kind of games that you have to come away with a W. But Islanders didn't. A bunch of deflection goals got by Nabokov. People blame Nabokov, but all 4 of the goals that got by him were the result of deflection plays. So, I thought he played well overall, but, Islanders got a couple things to clean up before they're going to be a
Interesting
playoff team.
statistic, though. On all 3 goals the Islanders scored, not one of them involved a point by John Tavares.
Yeah, that's definitely a first for that team. They rely heavily on Tavares, and it's interesting seeing the offense come from other players. I mean, that's one good thing you could take away from this game as an Islanders fan is that Tavares wasn't involved, and he still got three goals on the board, and that's nothing to turn your nose up at.
So the offense is getting there, but or it already has been there, but right now it just looks like defense.
Yeah,
that seems to be the problem.
It's also not being a very experienced team. I don't think with as many experienced teams you see a collapse like that, or at least as many collapses.
They have a lot of young players.
Yeah.
You got Tavares, Molson, Niederreiter. They're trying to rebuild for the future, which makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
But they don't have enough veteran leadership to help them buckle down when something like this starts to happen.
And not to mention just the Ottawa Senators, despite all these injuries. I mean, like, The Walking Dead is now on another channel, and it happens to be a Canadian network that whatever airs the Ottawa Senators, because despite all these injuries, they've just been playing on fire.
Yeah, I mean, they always surprise me as a fan watching them. They have a lot of talent. Their goaltending's pretty good.
What are you talking about with The Walking Dead? What?
The Ottawa Senators are The Walking Dead. Well,
I
all right,
get it.
maybe not, because
I don't get it.
They're
It
alive
makes
and
sense.
kicking. They're sixth.
The difference is The Walking Dead sucks.
Good point, Sean.
Now it does. The second season was awesome. Now
Okay.
All
So
right,
enough talking about TV shows. We're gonna go coast to coast, and right now we're just gonna pick the three biggest stories from around the league, and we're gonna start off with the Pacific Division. Guys, the Anaheim Ducks beat the Chicago Blackhawks, the almighty Hawks, by a score of 4-2, and it looks like the Anaheim Ducks are number one in the West now.
The Hawks were at the end of the second period. The Hawks were leading this game 2-1, and then the Ducks came out and scored 3 unanswered goals in the third to beat them. Showing their resiliency and that they're for real this year.
Well, the only thing I got to say about this is if you've been checking the NHL.com power rankings for the past 2 weeks, then you would have noticed that the Ducks have been ahead of the Blackhawks the past 2 weeks, which completely boggles my mind if you ask me. But now, with the Ducks beating the Chicago Blackhawks, now you could put the Ducks ahead of the Blackhawks on a power rankings list. It was this game that determined it for me, though.
Yeah, they've finally proven that they deserve to have that top spot.
Seems like definitely a playoff potential matchup, the two teams. Very, very interesting.
Ducks are now the team to beat in the National Hockey League.
All right, and with that, we now go to the Southeast Division, and though they're not like the Anaheim Ducks, a team that's been pretty hot as of late, the Winnipeg Jets. They're now first in the Southeast Division. And who do you think has been their one key player so far?
They've had a couple key players, but I personally think their key player right now has been their captain, Andrew Ladd. He's leading the team in scoring in both offensive categories. He's leading in both goals and assists. He's got 30 points on the year in 30 games, so he's on pace for a real good season, and he's been their leader both offensively and defensively so far.
Sebastian, Sean, do you guys have any key player?
Yeah, Andrew Ladd's been good, but the wheels have really been rolling for Blake Wheeler, too. He's tied for the team lead. He's got 14 goals just along with Andrew Ladd there. And it's pretty much the big three of Andrew Ladd, Blake Wheeler, and Evander Kane that are putting up the offensive numbers and really, really getting it done offensively for Winnipeg.
Yeah, they're finding some success with all their players, not necessarily just because aside from Evander Kane and maybe Andrew Ladd to some extent and Dustin Byfuglien, they don't have a lot of big name players on their team, but they're still finding ways to put up points and finding ways to win.
They're putting the win back in Winnipeg.
Yep. And I also feel like maybe one of their key players, I think he's one of the more underrated goaltenders of the league, Andrei Pavlik.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
And because I would personally watch him, whether he play the Rangers or the Devils, and almost every game he makes a save that looks like could be on ESPN's top 10 plays.
If they're still covered hockey.
And that's saying a lot considering that they don't cover hockey. But anyway, to our last division, that is the Central Division. The Columbus Blue Jackets, guys, they have an 11-game point streak.
Yeah, everyone was writing them off as soon as they traded Nash. They were like, okay, so they're officially rebuilding. They're going to be even worse the next couple of years than they've been, and now they're moved up.
So the question is, guys, will they make the playoffs this year? Do you think they can climb into the top 8?
No, I think it's just a mid-season surge we're seeing from them. It's hard to tell. It's a nice streak, but it's hard to tell if they could sustain that into the playoffs or any type of playoff success. I think winning 2 games in the first round would be a playoff success for them.
It's possible. They're in 10th place right now, and they're only 2 points out of the playoffs. So it's still very, very possible that they can move in. I don't know if they get into the playoffs. I can't see them getting past the first round with who they'd be playing against, but they can. I think it's possible for them to sneak in.
I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. It's going to be pretty hard to knock San Jose and Detroit out of those bottom couple spots. And plus, you got right behind Columbus, you got Dallas and Edmonton, who at the start of the season, I thought those 2 teams had the look to be playoff teams. So there's a lot of teams surrounding them that are going to give them a run for their money. I don't know if Columbus is ready to get it done yet.
All right, and with that is our segment Coast to Coast. And the big story of this show is the GM meetings. Guys, they have a GM meeting once every year, usually around the springtime, the end of the season. And recently, for the past couple of years, they've been talking about a lot of rule changes. And we're going to just discuss a couple of the rules that they're proposing, not only for in the game, but also outside the game, like the Olympics. We'll get to that later. But our first one is going to be hybrid icing. And guys, I'll explain the hybrid icing first. This is what they're going to propose. I had to explain this to Sebastian before the show. The puck goes down the ice, crosses the red line. The rule that stands right now is that if the defensive player touches the puck, it's an icing. If an attacking player touches the puck, the icing gets waved off. What they're planning to do, they're going to change it so they don't have to touch the puck. It'll be no-touch icing, but it'll rather be a race to a fixed position, most likely the face-off dots in the offensive zone. So if the forward crosses the face-off dot first, then the icing gets waved off. If the defending player goes there first, then it's an icing. What do you guys think?
I think we need a picture or a drawing or something.
A diagram, yeah. I would agree with that, but
I know what you're saying, though.
The first one to the face-off dot determines the icing call.
I'm not a big fan of it, because I also feel as if a lot of races to win those icing battles are won in the last few steps before you touch the puck. And also, a player's strength also gives into that factor. I mean, if you could force someone off the puck before they even touch it, I mean, that helps.
But I will tell you this, though, Sebastian, that is obviously a strategy that has been used, but there have been some pretty bad injuries. If you look at Curtis Foster and Taylor Faden, both of them actually broke their femurs on icing calls twice after the first lockout. So since 2006, there have been 2 broken femurs because of players racing for an iced puck and slamming into the boards.
That's understandable. Want to, tighten up on player safety, but you can't eliminate all physical aspects of the game. And there are times in a game when players are shoved up against those boards and are going to get bones broken. That's part of the game of hockey. It could happen, going for icing, racing for that puck, or in the open ice too. It just happens.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, do you have any thoughts?
No, not. I mean, I kind of just back up what Sebastian said. It's a part of hockey. It's gonna happen.
I mean, someone gets. And I will say this though.
There's a lot of times like I've seen interviews with people after the game, after they took a big open ice hit, and they're not mad at the players. They know it's a part of hockey. It's gonna happen. They're expecting to get hit out there.
But I will tell you this though. I did PA for the Seton Hall club hockey team, and in the NCAA they already have the hybrid icing. And they have the face-off dots as the reference point or the finish line, so to say. And originally I was against hybrid icing, but when I saw it being practiced at the college level, I actually kind of liked it. I think it works well. I know what you're saying when it's a part of the game, but I think the game can adjust really well to that hybrid icing. So, I hope they don't do no-touch icing. I do not want to see no-touch icing because I still like the idea of the offending team having a chance to cancel the icing. That's what separates the NHL and NCAA hockey from international hockey, and I like that. But I think that, especially if you want to cut down on concussions too, because when you're skating full speed to the boards, the last thing you want to do is get another concussion. And I think it's a good way of cracking down on injuries. But
just a quick question about it though: is it going to be that the player their skates have to cross the point, or just their stick? 'Cause then you can have people dive.
No. I think it's going to be their skates. It's going to be their whole body. Yeah, and then you go crashing into the boards again. I think the players are smarter than that.
Then they go face first into the boards. It's going to happen. You're going to have guys that are willing to do it. I could picture Ryan Callahan doing it. Just to try to reach it.
No, he has a lot of heart, but at the same time, he's not stupid.
I never said he was. Well, not that he's stupid, but he is willing to stand in front of his Zdeno try a slap shot.
It's true.
I'm not calling the player stupid. He's
I think
my
that's
favorite player on the team.
I think that's different than intentionally going into the boards. But anyway, we're going to go to our next rule change or potential rule change. Ken Holland, the GM of the Detroit Red Wings, proposed changing the overtime to either 8 or 10 minutes instead of 5. And the catch is, instead of a 5-minute 4-on-4, you break up those 8 or 10-minute overtime sessions into 2 separate ones. The first one being a 4-on-4, and if nobody scores, they go to a 3-on-3. Guys, you really seem to all favor this.
I love this idea. Shootouts have become such an important factor in deciding, wins and losses, and the way, they really dictate the standings now. And I don't think that shootouts should have that big of a bearing on the position of teams and wins and losses and stuff like that. So I think overtime, it's more natural hockey. Overtime should be the primary decision whether or not, because now most games that go past regulation, the majority of them will go past overtime too and end in a shootout. So I think it's good to extend the if it was up to me, I would have 5-on-5 overtime that goes, full 20-minute periods just like they do in the playoffs. I'd have that for the regular season. But, TV and all that prevents all that. But extend the overtime, I think, is a good idea. Have more games end in overtime, less in the shootout.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you watch hockey, the tone, the way that everyone plays, during the game, it's real intense. And then when it goes to overtime, when it becomes, the next goal decides it, the level of intensity is just multiplied greatly. And then it's also more exciting to watch because, when there's a lot more room to skate, when it's only 4-on-4, 3-on-3, it's, it becomes a lot easier to make some, really good or occasionally really bad plays. It makes it more exciting, more interesting to watch it.
Yeah, speaking of the 3-on-3, what do you guys think about that prospect? Because I talked to some other hockey fans, and they seem really excited about a 3-on-3.
I think it would be awesome. And 5 minutes with a 3-on-3, 9 out of 10 times there's going to be a goal scored. Most of the games are going to end in overtime, and that's how it should be. It's more exciting that way. The shootout's a lot of fun, and you love being at the game, seeing a shootout, whatever. But overtime, to me, overtime is so much more exciting. Overtime hockey really doesn't get much better than that.
I would agree. Just put more emphasis on overtime, less on the shootout. I think that's what the NHL needs. Comes to that kind of rule.
All right, and our next potential rule change. This one actually probably had was probably the most talked about, and that is the visors. And they're talking about either implementing them fully. They're talking about a possible grandfather clause. What do you guys think would be the answer?
Well, this whole discussion started obviously when Mark Stahl took the smack to the eye there, and now they want to make the visors completely mandatory, or like you said, grandfather them in. Explain what that means, grandfather them in.
Grandfather would mean almost like with the helmets that they implemented back in the 70s, I believe. If they were to implement the rule, so starting this year, or if they started next year, all the rookies and all the players that start to come in have to wear helmets. The players that were already playing by the time that rule got implemented, they don't have to wear visors.
Yeah,
it would be like a really gradual thing because I believe the helmet rule got implemented in '79, and Craig McTavish, who won the cup who took the faceoff for in Game 7, the '94 finals, he was still playing without a helmet, and I don't think he retired until '97.
I would support the grandfathering again. The older players, they know what they're getting into. They're used to that kind of play, but if you implement it in the AHL, the OHL, the minor leagues, the players get used to it. And it won't be as big a deal as trying to force. It's not trying to make an old dog learn new tricks. If you implement it at the younger levels, at all levels of hockey, besides the NHL right now, then it'll be a much easier transition for the younger players coming to the league.
I personally think that it should be not necessarily a visor, but some sort of face protection, whether it's
such as. You're not thinking about a full cage, are you? This isn't Pee-wee hockey.
No. But if you look at it, at every level that someone plays hockey prior to reaching the majors, they have to have some sort of face protection, whether it's a cage or like a plastic face shield. They have to have something, like every single level. So obviously they're used to playing with some kind of visor, something in their face. Like it's not like it's be something completely new, completely out of the blue they've never done before. So that's why. Plus, I don't understand why a lot of players are so against wearing the visors because you're just leaving yourself open to a stupid injury you can easily prevent.
Such as Ian LaPerriere back in 2010 when he blocked a Paul Martin shot.
Well, I never think that if you're blocking a shot from the point that you should lay down on the ice with your face more than, within 2 or 3 feet of the ice. I don't think when you're blocking a shot you should ever go more than putting one knee down on the ground.
Somebody should tell that to Ryan Callahan.
Yeah, it's amazing he hasn't had a serious injury yet.
When he goes down and does though, he always, makes sure, whether he's going down to one knee or he's sliding across the ice, he always makes sure he looks away from the shot.
Yeah, that's another thing. Players, I don't think the visor should be mandatory, but players need to be educated on the kinds of injuries that can happen without the visor. They also need to be educated in how to block shots properly because there's a lot of players that don't block shots properly. They'll have their stick out in front of them, and it'll ramp up the stick and hit them in the face, or they'll be laying down on the ice.
Went up off someone's stick and hit him in the face.
But the thing is, though, Sean, you can go through as much training as you need to, but nothing will stop a deflected puck because no matter what, tipping pucks is a part of the game. It's inevitable.
Well, I'm saying deflect it off your own stick, like Michael said.
No, exactly. But you're still going to have a player trying to tip the puck, and it can still go up. That's how Jack Hillen got hit in the face by an Alex Ovechkin shot when he was actually putting up the 60-goal season. So when his shot was absolutely deadly. And I agree as much with the block shots. I think it should be the coach's responsibility to make sure that they know what they're doing. But I think I kind of stand on the side with the grandfather clause. But going on to that, where the next one will be the coach's challenge. And we were talking about the Devils-Ranger game, a couple of really bad calls from the officials. And it looks like that they're discussing should the coaches be allowed to challenge them.
Go ahead, Sebastian.
I think it's completely silly. I mean, is there a debate? Certainly. I don't think I would like the effect it would have on the pace of the game. I think one of the things hockey has going for it to the casual fan is its speed. It's a very quick game. MLB game these days take 4.5 hours. Football games, 3+. NHL games, they have, some TV timeouts and an intermission between periods. If you throw a coach's challenge in there, even one for each team, that's a maybe potential 5 extra minutes for each team added on. You got to deal with commercial time. There's a lot to line up there. And I think it would turn away a casual viewer, which NHL really needs to try to latch on to.
I think the coach's challenge is an excellent idea that needs to be implemented as soon as possible, because you guys made mention earlier about the reffing, how it's been kind of inconsistent. Now, yes, it's a fast-paced game. I understand the refs are not going to get a lot of the calls right, but some of the calls, this really needs to be overturned, because the refs will miss calls. They will make awful calls that will completely impact the outcome of a game. What was the call, the Duchesne call we talked about a couple weeks ago?
The offsides
where
call.
the linesman's standing right on the blue line. Duchesne's 5-10 feet offsides, gets the pass, scores a goal. And
I have a quick question about
that. That's the exact kind of thing that a coach's challenge needs to be implemented for.
That's sports, though. That's the human element of sports. Not get everything right. I mean, once you take that away.
Yeah, but if you can get everything right, then by all means get everything right. Now, I understand that you don't want to slow the pace of the game down, but the pace of the game's already being slowed down when you got timeouts being called. If you don't want to slow the pace of the game down, get rid of the commercials, because the commercials
what makes
come
money
out,
for NHL? The commercials. That's silly. I mean, they need
but
to
make. Yeah, obviously,
But I mean,
there
are already plays that the refs take on themselves to review, and they go up to the trailer in Toronto. Yeah. And personally, if this rule doesn't get passed, I think it'll have something with the employees at the Toronto trailer, something behind this, just so they don't have that much of a workload. But all aside, I mean, you brought up a really good point with the Matt Duchesne offsides call, and I think that there are some calls that you really should be up for debate.
Yeah, no, the way I think it should be is not necessarily a coach's challenge, but any call that either is really close, or if, in the whole mix of everything that happens, you see someone goes down, holding their face, they're bleeding, but no one knows what happened, so a penalty couldn't be called. Then you stop, you review, you find out what happened, and you make the appropriate call. I mean, there's still going to be things that, like if it's a blatant, something blatant that, everyone can see, then, you don't need to redo it. But something that could have been a little sketchy, or you just plain don't know what happened, it got completely missed, there's someone down on the ice, then you review it, you find out what happened, what was missed.
All right.
If you're going to implement a coach's challenge, I understand the big concern is that people are worried that it's going to affect the game, however it's going to affect the game. This is what I think they need to do. People are talking about that if a coach calls a challenge and he ends up being not right, he doesn't get the call overturned, then the team gets a delay of game penalty or they lose their timeout. I don't think either of those, because that affects the game too much. It should be separate. The coach's challenge, each coach should get 2 or 3 coaches' challenges per game. And they should be able to use all of them. However, if a coach uses a coach's challenge and he's not right, he doesn't get the call overturned, then he loses the opportunity to use any coach's challenges for the rest of the game.
You're talking about, I'm going to say it's going to be like a 5-minute thing for each challenge. Cause
it's not going to be 5 minutes.
Here's how the
most
challenge,
goals that they review take a minute.
Here's how the challenges work.
Okay.
The coach calls a challenge. The refs come over and discuss, are you calling a challenge? Are you sure? The coach is like, yeah, I'm calling a challenge. The refs are, okay, you're calling a challenge. Meanwhile, the players are waiting around. They're waiting for the play to start again. Then the refs go over to whatever. I don't know if it's refs could be reviewing it or people in Toronto reviewing it.
It would most likely be the guys in Toronto.
They're already watching all the NHL games going on.
The fans who are not familiar with this, there is a super high-tech trailer up in Toronto.
The War Room,
where all the disputed goal calls already are disputed. They have really nice camera angles and just HD TV. So just to make sure you
continue,
get
Sebastian.
Okay, so they go over a review. That's going to take a minute, like maybe less, maybe a little bit more depending on the call. Then they're going to take another minute or a minute and a half or 2 minutes deciding what's going to be the next stage of the game. Because what happens to NFL too, they discuss where the puck's going to be. What is there a line change?
It's not going to take 2 minutes. You write these rules.
Yes, it will.
It's not going to take 2 minutes to decide where they're going to drop the puck.
Yes, it will.
No, it won't.
Have you seen an NFL game? It takes them at least.
I don't watch NFL. This isn't
a
football.
ball
This is hockey.
placement and a face-off placement are two completely
if you're gonna
different
slow the
things.
game
I know,
down.
but they're very alike. I mean, like ball placement, it depends like what yard line.
But
It's
if you already know what call you're going to be debating, then
The
I'm
difference
pretty
between
sure
football and hockey is that football placement is by inches, and there's God knows how many inches on a football field. Hockey placement, there's only so many places that you drop the puck.
There are only 5
based on where the
yards.
puck
It's
goes
by
out,
yards.
or based on where play happens.
Yeah, no,
the
but
ref
there's more-
knows instantly.
there's more
at the
to
snap of a
discuss than
finger
that.
where the
There's
puck's going to be dropped.
Who's going to be on ice? Because sometimes teams can't switch out players depending on what kind of call it is. Like icing.
Yeah, well, that
that's
happens
only
with an
icing.
icing, and there's 50 icings per game. These
Alright,
rules are pre-written.
Can you challenge an icing? Can you challenge any
No,
play of the game?
no,
Can you
but-
only challenge penalties? What about goals? What about pucks going into the stands?
This
what
doesn't
can
slow
you
the game
challenge?
down.
It's
this
going
is
to
the-
significantly slow the game
So you
down.
slow the game down by 5, maybe 10 minutes at the most per
If you
night.
have 3 challenges
The fans
per
don't notice it
team,
whatsoever.
per
Overtime
team.
slows the game down by an extra 15 minutes, 30 minutes.
3 challenges per team. It's going to slow the game a lot more
Okay,
than 15 minutes.
I'd say only one. But and our last topic for the GM meeting.
If it
will
means
be,
getting the calls right, if you're going to slow the game down by a couple minutes each night, but it means
It's
getting the
human
calls
error.
right.
I mean, like-
because the amount of calls that affect the outcome of a game that are completely wrong, that are
That's in every sport. In every single
All right,
sport.
so-
well, there needs to be something done about it because it's not fair.
as I was saying,
it balances out eventually. It happens to every team. It's not like it's only the Rangers, only Devils get calls against them.
So look up a video of me for the Duchesne offsides goal where there's an offsides by that amount of distance with the linesman standing 5 feet away. That happens for every team.
I might
That
have
ends
every
up in a
team,
goal.
but I guarantee the next game, that team probably got a call against again that they didn't like, that they wanted reviewed. So it happens to everybody.
all right. So our last
So
topic
just
for the
eliminate
GM
it
meeting,
then nobody gets pissed off, including me.
the Olympics. Should professionals be in the Olympics?
Yes.
They should.
Yes.
You,
And
you
anyone that's
think they
trying to
should?
prevent
Yes.
a professional athlete for representing his country in the Olympics, the biggest sports venue in human history for the last hundreds and
The
thousands
longest
of
one,
years,
too, yeah.
then that person should be smacked with something.
I don't know about smacked, but yes, I agree with Sean.
If they tell the NHL players that they can't go to the Olympics, the NHL players are still probably going to go to the Olympics, and they should. It shouldn't even be an issue.
Mike, before it looked like you said you had some opposition to it.
Not necessarily, because it's like I'm kind of for both sides, but like I can make an argument for both sides, because with the NHL players being in the Olympics, it's a lot of fun to I'm sitting there and I'm watching for instance Ryan Callahan, who's my favorite player on the Rangers, and I'm sitting there having him represent my country, and having one of my friends who's a huge Devils fan is sitting there rooting for the same people, so it like all those ties are all thrown out the window, and it becomes, country versus country, not team versus team. But where I could see people being against the players being in is with something, it could give rise to something like with the Miracle on Ice, which those were all a bunch of college kids who were, a lot of them from, rival colleges, so they were from the start ready to kill each other. And they were turned into a winning team by their coach, and they beat the best team in the world, a team that played hockey for a living. And they were literally kids our ages. They were representing their country, and with players being on the things, there's never going to be another chance for something like that to happen. When our generation's never going to be able to experience that. So that's why I can see there being arguments for both sides.
That's a very good point. And with that, that's pretty much all the topics we've covered for the general managers meeting. And our next segment. And we've been waiting a long time for this, and now here it is, Clancy's Crease.
All right, we're kind of. I'll try and keep this short a little bit. There's one more thing about the general managers meeting is goalie pad size that they want to reduce it. They need to reduce it because here's the main thing that they're upset with the goalie pads is that the way the pads are built nowadays, they allow past the knee. They allow the pad to rise up 55% from between a goalie's knee and his pelvis. 55%, that's more than half of your thigh, right? For all you math whizzes out there, 55% is more than half. Now, this is ridiculous because goalies all play the butterfly style nowadays, except for a couple. When a goalie drops down with both his knees down on the ice for a shot that's going low, with these new pads the last 10 years that they've been using, a goalie can drop down with his knees at least a foot, maybe 2 feet apart, yet still cover up between his legs because of how high the pads rise off the knee. Now, goalie pads are about protecting the goalie from injury, not about taking up as much of the net as possible, and that's all that they've been doing for the past 10 years is taking up as much of the net as possible. So goalie pad reduction sizes, and this is coming from a goalie, need to be drastically reduced, and then you'll see goalies, then we can tell what goalies really have skill and what don't. Now, the other thing I want to mention, you got to mention this, Brodeur back in the lineup tonight. Devils have missed him dearly. Hedberg's played well, in my opinion, in Brodeur's absence, but Brodeur's coming back tonight. I got the Brodeur jersey on, the retro. I'm rocking it right now, and I can rock it even though the Devils just lost to the Rangers. Now, there's unwritten rules on when you can wear your jersey and when you can't wear your jersey. If your team loses, you can't wear your jersey until the next game day. That's an unwritten rule. When your team is knocked out of the playoffs, you can't wear it until opening night the following year, unless there's a couple exceptions. You go into some sort of event or something like that. Like for instance, me, I'm going to the draft is going to be at The Rock this summer, so I might go to that. That's going to be after the playoffs. Devils probably aren't going to win the playoffs, I'll be honest. But that's the kind of thing you wear your jersey to. That's an exception. But those are the unwritten rules of jerseys. Now, anyway, Brodeur back in the lineup against Carolina, who he's not had a lot of success against. The whole Devils team hasn't. But it's gonna be a good test. Devils also have Loktionov back. Carolina's getting Tuomo Ruutu back for the first time this season. He had a surgery in December. He hasn't played at all this season, so it's going to be a big game, big test for Brodeur. Devils fans very excited. Marty's better. Let's get it done.
All right, and that is Clancy's Crease, and I guess we'll end it up with the predictions. And Devils and Hurricanes, and you got the Rangers and the Panthers, if I'm not mistaken. And we'll start off with the Devils, Hurricanes. Guys, who do you think will take it tonight?
I'm going to go with the Devils, obviously. I'm going to call a shutout for Brodeur. Last time Brodeur was injured for a while. He was out 50 games 3 years ago. Came back against, I forget what team it was. Came back, though, his very first game back, got a shutout. So history repeats itself. As they say, I'd like to see a shutout from Marty tonight.
I'm going to say the Hurricanes.
Of course you are.
Because I think Fatso's going to have a heart attack on the ice. Oh,
Jesus.
He must weigh 350 pounds by now.
Oh, Jesus.
So
just wait until Henrik Lundqvist gets those pads reduced. He's probably the biggest offender out of the oversized goalie pads.
That sounds like a person who has this strange complex about Henrik Lundqvist. I don't understand why people call him Queen Henrik.
No, I don't call him
because
Queen.
Rangers fans make fun of the greatest goalie who's ever played hockey, like he's fat or something.
Sister-in-law.
And then you want
sister-in-law. No, you see, the thing is, the thing with a lot of fans, especially Devils fans, they can't accept that it's Brodeur's time is ending. And he's the greatest goalie to ever play hockey. I will admit that, but they can't accept that his time, his reign as the best goalie in hockey at the moment is coming to an end, and they can't accept that the person that's gonna be taking the reins from him is from their division rival, the Rangers. They can't accept it.
I just want to point out that Lundqvist, albeit, he has a lot less games played than Brodeur so far in his career. Obviously, that's a big impact on what the stats look like. But his statistics are eerily similar to Brodeur's.
Except at this point,
I think the comparison.
Lundqvist is in his 6th or 7th year in the league, 7th, I think.
Yeah.
At that point in Brodeur's career, he had already won Vezina trophies, Jennings trophies, Stanley Cups, more All-Star appearances, more gold medals.
But Sean, I will give Lundqvist this.
He's a great goalie. He's a good goalie.
Brodeur has played against
good.
And this is coming from a Devils fan. The Devils Brodeur has played in front of great defensive teams.
Thank you.
I will
supported him actually.
I will give Lundqvist that he's been facing a lot more shots a game.
What happened when we lost Niedermayer and Stevens and Danico and Rafalski and all our big name defensemen? Brodeur set every record in the NHL. So,
all right. So Rangers and Panthers.
No one's trying to take that. Hold on. No one's trying to take that away from him.
Well, he started calling Brodeur fat, so saying he weighs 350 pounds or something.
It's not. I'm not making fun of him saying he's fat. It's okay. One
it a
third,
fact?
disagree.
1/3 of America's overweight. It's all right.
They had people have to start to
America.
accept. People that they don't want to accept that it's the end of Brodor's reign. They get angry when they think about someone else being called the best goalie in hockey.
No, and
No other goalie's
but
ever
you
gonna be
all
called
know
the best
something,
goalie in
guys.
hockey.
No, I don't mean best goalie of all time. I mean like the currently, the best player currently playing.
Oh, Brodor hasn't been the best goalie in hockey for the past couple years.
No, and you all know something, Mike. I feel like those same people are kind of hypocrites because then they turn around and say when Brodor retires, he's done. I agree with you. I think Lundqvist is becoming a much better goalie now. He's entering his prime. Brodor's ending his career. But at the same time, when Brodor leaves, I won't be worried one bit. We got Kincaid, we got Wedgwood, we got Jeff Frazee, great goaltending prospects, and so
I also think when they make the goalie pads smaller, Lundqvist is not going to be as good. He is one of the biggest abusers of the large goalie pads.
Abuser.
Yeah, abuser.
But
Can
regardless,
we reflect
Sebastian,
on how he
Mike,
abuses the pads that everyone uses.
who do
I'm
you think
curious.
will win tonight as of this
if he
recording?
didn't wear the pads
Florida
so
versus
big
the
without
Rangers.
the knee pads coming
can't
5
answer.
feet above
You'd
his
never
knees,
hear me over
then he
this.
wouldn't make nearly as many saves.
You can't judge that. You don't
All right, well, make the
predictions
goalie
like
pads
that.
smaller. Make him wear the pads that goalies wore 20, 30, 40 years ago
All
and
right,
see if he's still as
I'll
good.
email Gary Bettman and tell him what do you think.
Okay, Sebastian, Mike, Rangers or Panthers? Do you think the Rangers can overcome the Panthers tonight?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. The Rangers could put together a couple wins here. They do struggle with continuing winning ways. Let's put it that way. They've always struggled with getting a winning streak going. So I hope so. Yeah, I'm gonna go Rangers win.
They should win this. There's no reason why they shouldn't. They're playing against the Panthers, who's one of the bottom teams in the division. They lost their best offensive weapon, Stephen Weiss, for the season. And they lost what's his name? Delia used to play for the Flyers. Versteeg, they lost for the season.
Right.
So they were probably their two biggest offensive weapons. So they should be able to easily handle this game.
All right, and now we have our final buzzer. Guys, the LA Kings are going to the White House on March 26th to visit the president as he will congratulate the LA Kings on their Stanley Cup run last year. Who do you think will be the next Tim Thomas? Do you think anybody will snub that trip to the White House? And if so, who do you think it'll be?
I don't think any of them should go. Does the president even watch hockey?
Probably
He's
not.
a Blackhawks fan, but no. Let's just make a wild guess. If anybody were to not go to the White House, who do you think it would be? I'm just curious what you guys would think. Just a random guess.
Political views.
I would say Sean Clancy.
Well, he's not on the Kings.
I'd
His
say
point
he-
is
he-
invalid.
I'm not sure.
I'll guess
I
Dustin Penner.
I was gonna. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, it depends. Do they need to be serving pancakes? If they are, he's staying as far away from there as possible.
All right. Well, with that wraps up our latest episode of Hockey at the Hall. So stay tuned for next week. And until then, I'm your host Anthony DiPaolo.
Sebastian Barry.
Mike Bellotti.
I'm Sean Clancy.
And with that, we will see you next week.